The Hollow Peak Retreat, Part 1. Ethan had never been the type to take time off. Work was everything, and the city never slept, so neither did he. But lately, the exhaustion had seeped deep into his bones, making his reflection look more like a stranger. So when his friend Ryan suggested a weekend away in the mountains, Ethan barely hesitated. A cabin up in Hollow Peak, Ryan had said. Middle of nowhere, no phone signal, no distractions. Just peace, man. Peace. Ethan wasn't sure he even knew what that felt like anymore. But as he drove up the winding mountain roads, the city shrinking behind him, he felt something strange stir in his chest. A lightness, like he was leaving behind more than just traffic and noise. It was dusk when he finally pulled up to the cabin. Tall pines loomed on either side, their shadows stretching unnaturally long in the fading light. The cabin itself was small, rustic, with a wraparound porch and windows that reflected only the darkness behind him. Ryan's car was already there. But the cabin was silent. A creeping unease crawled up Ethan's spine. He shook it off, chalking it up to the eerie stillness of being this far removed from civilization. He grabbed his bag, climbed the porch steps, and knocked. No answer. "Ryan," he called, trying the handle. Unlocked. He pushed the door open. The cabin was dark. The only light came from a dying fire in the stone hearth, casting weak, flickering shadows across the wooden walls. Ethan stepped inside, his footsteps echoing too loudly. "Ryan," he tried again. Still nothing. Something wasn't right. His fingers found the light switch, click. Nothing. Power was out. The unease in his gut sharpened. Maybe Ryan had gone to get firewood. Maybe he was playing a prank. Or maybe something moved in the loft above. A faint creak of wood. Ethan's breath caught. He turned his head slowly, following the sound. The loft railing cast jagged shadows down the wall, but he could see it, a shape. Still. Watching. A silhouette in the darkness. Ethan's mouth went dry. He took a slow step back. The floorboard beneath him groaned. The shadow shifted. A whisper, too soft to understand. Then. The cabin door slammed shut. And the fire went out. The cabin was swallowed in darkness. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. Then, from the loft. Heavy footsteps. Coming down. He turned to run, hands scrambling blindly for the door handle. Cold fingers brushed the back of his neck. And a voice, low, rasping, wrong, whispered in his ear. "You should have stayed in the city." The darkness breathed. And the door never opened. Ethan's scream barely left his throat before the darkness swallowed him whole. The cold fingers that had brushed his neck were gone. The whisper, "You should have stayed in the city," echoed in his skull like an aftershock, but when he spun around, gasping, nothing was there. The fire in the hearth had gone out completely, leaving only a suffocating blackness that pressed against his skin. The air smelled wrong, damp wood, something burnt, and a faint, metallic tang that sent a sharp instinctual warning through his body. His pulse hammered as he fumbled for his phone. He pressed the power button, nothing. The screen was black. He could feel the walls of the cabin around him, the massive presence of the woods outside, but something was off. Like the space had stretched. Like the walls weren't where they were supposed to be. Then, the footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming down the loft stairs. Ethan held his breath. Each step was drawn out, like whoever, or whatever, was up there wanted him to hear it. His hands trembled as he reached for the door handle again. Locked. No. Not locked. There was no door handle anymore. His breath turned to ice in his chest. He flattened his palm against the wood, his fingers searching desperately in the darkness. The door was just, smooth. Seamless. Like it had never been a door at all. The air pressed heavier against his skin. His ears rang with absolute silence. Even the wind outside had stopped. Then, the voice came again. From the loft. Turn around. Ethan bit back a cry. His muscles tensed. He knew, that if he turned around, he would see something he wasn't meant to see. The heavy, suffocating silence stretched on. And then, the breathing started. Soft. Labored. Too close. Right behind him. His entire body locked up. His skin screamed. But he couldn't move. He felt something hovering inches away from his neck. Not touching him. Just waiting. His knees nearly gave out. Then. A new sound. From outside. A car engine. The sound of tires crunching gravel. Ethan whipped around. And suddenly, the door was there again. The fire in the hearth roared back to life. The lights above the kitchen flickered on. Everything was exactly as it had been when he walked in. Except for one thing. The front door was wide open. And Ryan was standing on the porch, staring at him, brows furrowed. Dude, what the hell are you doing? Ethan's breath came in sharp gasps. His head spun. Ryan stepped inside, frowning. Why are you just standing there? I've been hunking outside for 5 minutes. Ethan couldn't speak. His mouth was dry, his limbs were shaking. He turned back toward the loft. Empty. The wooden railing stood undisturbed. The stairs were normal. Like nothing had ever been there. Jesus, you look like you've seen a ghost. Ryan dropped his bag by the couch. Did you even hear me outside? The road's a nightmare, man. Fog's rolling in thick. Place is creepy as hell. Ethan licked his lips. His tongue felt like sandpaper. How long have I been here? Ryan gave him a weird look. What do you mean? You just got here, right? No. No, that wasn't right. Ethan felt sick. His stomach twisted in a way that wasn't natural. He had been inside the cabin for at least 20 minutes. Hadn't he? His eyes darted to his phone screen. Black. Not dead. Blank. Like it had never been turned on. Are you okay? Ryan asked, concerned now. Dude, you look like you're gonna pass out. Ethan forced himself to nod. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe exhaustion had done something to his brain. Maybe. Ryan sighed, clapping him on the back. Well, come on. Let's get some beers, start a fire. Relax. We've got 2 nights of peace before we go back to the city. Ethan let out a weak laugh and followed him inside. Ryan was right. It was just a cabin. Just the wind. Just exhaustion. Nothing was wrong. Except. As Ryan pulled the door shut, Ethan caught a glimpse of something outside. A figure. Standing between the trees. Tall. Motionless. Too far to see clearly. And yet, he knew. It was watching him. Waiting. And as the door clicked shut, Ethan swore he heard it whisper. You were supposed to stay. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Ryan snored in the other room, completely at ease, but Ethan lay awake in his bed, listening. Listening to the wind, except there was no wind. Listening to the crackling fire, except it had died hours ago. Listening to the silence, except it wasn't silent. There was something beneath the quiet. A faint, steady breathing. Not his. Not Ryan's. It came from the loft. The same place he had seen it. The thing that had whispered to him. His skin crawled. His body felt wrong, heavy, like the air was pressing him into the mattress. He couldn't move. He didn't want to move. Because if he moved, it would know. And it was already watching. Morning came. Bright. Peaceful. Normal. Ryan made coffee, complaining about how he had slept like crap, but Ethan barely heard him. All he could think about was the dream. Because it had to be a dream. Right? He had seen something standing at the foot of his bed. Tall. Hollow. Its head tilted too far to one side, like its neck was broken. And when he tried to scream, it crawled onto the bed, pressing cold fingers against his chest, pinning him down. It had leaned in, its face inches from his, and whispered inside his skull. "You don't belong here." Then, he woke up. Just a dream. Ryan was here. The sun was up. The weekend was half over. Just one more night. Then they could leave. Ethan wanted to go now. But Ryan? Ryan laughed it off. "Dude, you just need fresh air. You're paranoid. This place is awesome." Ethan didn't argue. He knew Ryan wouldn't listen. Instead, he tried to convince himself. Just a dream. Just the stress of the city catching up. Nothing was wrong. Except. That night, Ethan woke up again. The room was too dark. The air was too heavy. And something was whispering. From inside the cabin. He sat up slowly, his throat dry, his pulse hammering. Ryan's door was open. The bed was empty. No. No, no, no. Ethan stood up. His whole body screamed at him to run. But something was moving in the corner of the room. A shape, shifting out of the shadows. Ryan. Barefoot. Standing too still. His head was tilted too far to one side. His lips moved, but no sound came out. His eyes. Oh, God. His eyes weren't there anymore. The whisper came again. From Ryan's mouth. But it wasn't Ryan's voice. "You stayed too long." Ethan turned and ran. Straight for the front door. But when he grabbed the handle, the door was gone. Smooth. Seamless. Like it had never been there at all. His breath hitched. No. No, this wasn't happening. His hands pressed against the wood, searching. Scraping. Ryan's bare feet dragged across the floor behind him. The whisper crawled into his ears. "We told you to leave." Ethan screamed. Then. A knock. From outside. Loud. Sharp. Urgent. And just like that. The door was back. It flung open, cold air rushing in. And there was Ryan. The real Ryan. Standing on the porch, looking annoyed. "Dude. What the hell are you doing? Why'd you lock me out?" Ethan's heart stopped. He turned slowly. The cabin was empty. No whispering. No shadows. Just him. And yet. He felt something watching. Something still waiting. He ran past Ryan, shoving him towards the car. "We need to go. Now." Ryan frowned. "Dude, what's?" "Get in the car." Ryan hesitated. Then, seeing Ethan's face, he got in. Ethan peeled out of the driveway, tires kicking up dirt, speeding down the mountain road. The further they drove, the lighter the air became. The pressure lifted. The trees thinned. And finally, his phone buzzed. Service restored. A laugh bubbled up in his throat. A hysterical, breathless laugh. They were okay. They made it out. Ryan exhaled, shaking his head. Jesus, man. What the hell happened back there? Ethan didn't answer. Because he didn't know how to explain. But as he glanced in the rearview mirror, his stomach turned to ice. Ryan's reflection was smiling. But Ryan wasn't. And then, Ryan whispered, "You never really left." The road stretched endlessly ahead. And the car kept driving. Deeper. Back into the woods.